Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I hope you're all doing well, inshallah. Sister Samar.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing very well and glad to be here with you today, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, me and you have been speaking for a while now for us to come together more often and speak about subjects. The subject we're about to talk about today is always popular, alhamdulillah. I think what we're trying to do in our talks is bring balance to conversations that are had online. So that's what we're going to try and do, inshallah. So shall we get into the video?
Wake-up call to our sisters. Beautiful clothing. Beautiful clothing includes beautiful abaya, beautiful jilbabu, beautiful niqabu, beautiful khimaru, and all the stuff that the sisters be rocking today, where you're still like, okay, yo, that looks nice. You get what I'm saying? Like, you're covering everything, but are we missing something here? The whole idea from your clothing is that men deter their vision, and they're like, you know, that's just boring. That's really the objective of the hijab. The objective of the hijab is that men find you boring, because if they don't find you boring, they have this urge to look again, which they have to resist. But assuming that they fail in that resistance, they have the urge to look again, and if they look again, then you have failed in really wearing proper hijab, because you gave them a call, an invitation, a reason to have a second look. If you were...
I'm going to comment first on the fact that he said the objective of the hijab is that men find women boring. Definitely one of the requirements of the hijab is that it should not be an adornment in and of itself. So it shouldn't be attractive, and obviously it should be loose and opaque, all these other kind of things. Okay, there's a list, right?
What do you think he means by boring? Like, what do you think he means?
That's what I'm saying. Like, boring for one person might not be boring for another person. And like, for me, like when he mentions if your jilbab or your hijab in general is like something which isn't boring, a man will have an urge to have another look. I don't agree with that 100%, because the reality is, if you live in a Western country, you live with a lot of non-Muslim people, a lot of Muslims use this reasoning as an excuse as to why we shouldn't wear hijab or we shouldn't wear the niqab, because they're saying, well, you're standing out by wearing the hijab or by wearing the niqab because you're living in a place where it's not common. So people automatically take a second look at you. Do you understand? So if you're covered from head to toe in black, especially the black, which is something that a lot of Western people do not like or find maybe even offensive, they do a double take naturally. And black, you could say black is the most boring of all, and you're covered completely. You're not trying to be attractive, but you're standing out because you are different from what people are used to.
We don't want to be making the religion difficult for anyone. If a sister hears this and doesn't really understand, it might make it difficult for her to go outside. It might make it difficult for her to wear hijab, because she might be over analysing and overthinking, and we have to be careful that we don't cross that line. At the end of the day, there is a guideline that we as women should follow and adhere to, but that doesn't necessarily make us accountable for us being looked at twice. I think it's the thing with what this brother said. He said it in this clip in a very vague way, so it kind of leaves room for different opinions. We know that men have a duty to lower their gaze. That's just kind of where I'm at.
When regarding to the brother lowering the gaze, because obviously, alhamdulillah, we wear the hijab if we're wearing it correctly as well. Even if a brother does take a second look, or any man, okay, so even a non-Muslim, then he's only seeing somebody that is with hijab. You're completely covered, so he's not getting to see your, you know, what is your aura basically. So I think that's an important thing to mention as well. So I agree with what you're saying about the vagueness, because, you know, for some people, boring is you should only wear black, or for
Yeah.
some people, boring is you should only wear certain colors, you know. And
Yeah.
for others, like there's some sisters, for example, who they wear complete full hijab, but they like to wear lighter colors because that's in their culture. That's what fits in better rather than wearing the all
Yeah.
black, you know. So to Morocco, for example, you're seeing that women are wearing the jilbab less and less than how they used to. But in the past, when I used to go there, and in areas where women was wearing a lot of like jilbabs or abayas, you would see every kind of color you can imagine. And when you see all these colors, these are women. That's it. So any man who sees that, oh, there's this bright color over there, he can lower his gaze because it's like, oh, that's a woman. So you just turn your head. Do you know what I mean? So I think it depends on your culture, how it's in the perception. Whereas obviously Saudi Arabia is quite different. The uniform there is basically black. So a black garment, you see, you automatically you connect with your mind. That's a woman. So I think there's cultural identity and things like that should be taken into consideration. I'm not somebody who wants to say, well, oh, just look at the culture, but it's how things are perceived in the culture. Like sisters like us who've lived in the West and wearing full hijab, black is not a color which is appreciated by people.
Yeah.
A lot of sisters prefer black, but they don't wear it sometimes, or they opt not to wear it because it's easier for them in their communities to wear colors which are, you know, because black is related to funerals. And
Sister, you're being too kind. Thanks to the media. Black is also connected to terrorism. It's connected to, you know, ISIS and Daesh or whatever the hell they're calling themselves. Especially in Europe, as you know, it's dangerous sometimes to walk out in a black niqab. Now, I'm not saying that we adapt ourselves in accordance to what people like. Our first priority is Allah or Deen, but we know that wearing colours is, you know, within reason, obviously, is not impermissible. As long as all the criteria of hijab are being met, then it is permissible. For me in Scotland, there's only like 70,000 Muslims in Scotland. Okay, so niqabis are rare, and sometimes I go out in black, sometimes I go out in the lighter colours that I'm wearing. What I do know is the days that I choose to go out in black, I have to go out ready to get abused. I think it's important that we have discussions on hijab, but I think we also have a duty to have a level of empathy when it comes to sisters in this talk, because one, we're living in a time where we are being objectified left, right, and centre, and a lot of women are feeling the pressure of that. So there needs to be empathy with that and consideration. I'm always one who favours encouragement rather than, you know, harshness. I'm not accusing this brother of harshness, because we do see some sisters that are just, they don't care. It's about letting them know why that's in their interest and the people that they are influencing. It's in their interest that they, you know, relook at things, whether that be hijab or anything else. We're all supposed to be striving to be our best selves, inshallah. So it's trying to have, again, that balance.
It's important, I think, especially as Muslims, that we educate not just the daughters, but the sons also about what hijab is, because there's a lot of sisters. Part of this problem is the fact that in a lot of communities, even Muslim communities, because I think he's referring to a lot of the sisters who are posting images of themselves online. Okay, so if we look at it from that aspect as well, we can see that what happens is that a lot of sisters are raised in communities where maybe they're encouraged to wear the hijab or expected to wear it, but they don't actually really understand the meaning and the purpose behind wearing the hijab and like why they should wear it. And the same also goes for the males too. Like when the hijab is linked to just being something which is cultural, or oh yeah, we're Muslim and this is how we dress, we're not attaching it to being something that is in line with obeying the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the woman is supposed to cover then a lot of Muslims from Muslim backgrounds do not understand how serious it is to adhere to the conditions of the hijab. And some of them don't actually know there are conditions, because I've spoken to sisters before. They've made comments like, oh, you know, hijab is in the Quran, or, you know, there's no particular, like, you know, rules for hijab. And they've actually said that. And I had to say to a sister, well, actually, there are specific rules. And I gave them to her, and she was shocked. She'd never, ever heard of that. So we have to take this into consideration, that a lot of Muslims do not know what the actual conditions of the hijab are. For them, hijab is just putting on a scarf. They may adapt their hijab according to whatever country they've moved to, or even sometimes remove it completely, because they're linking the hijab itself and the way that they dress to, you know, being appropriate to where you live. So it's like, when in Rome, do as the Romans. You wear whatever the people around you are wearing. And I had this experience. I really hate that statement. I was studying at an English college, and I met some sisters from Saudi Arabia, and I was wearing black. I was wearing black abaya, black niqab, and I met some sisters from Saudi Arabia there. They were wearing tight jeans. You know, they had a headscarf on, but they had on tight jeans and, like, you know, jumpers. And they said to me, one of the sisters said to me, she said, oh, I like my country better because women have to wear abaya. And I looked at her and I was a bit confused, because I was thinking, well, in England, you can wear abaya as well. But for her, she didn't see it like that. She saw it as, I'm in England now, so this is what the women in England wear. Yeah, that's why she still had her scarf on, but she was not, you know, adhering to the conditions of the hijab. So that told me that she obviously didn't understand what the conditions of hijab was. Like, we both get comments still now, even with having our channels and having it explained in multiple ways and multiple different times, that the hijab is mandatory, you know, whether you wear the niqab or not, you know, it's something that is part of Islam. But we still get comments from people telling us that we're dressing, you know, in an extreme fashion.
Niqab is culture. I did a video on this, and anybody interested in seeing the evidences of niqab in Islam, it's not just culture, then I'll try and link that in the description. But it is exhausting, and I have been Muslim almost 17 years. And I have always had that conversation. I've always consistently had to have that conversation throughout, whether or not niqab is culture or Islamic. 17 years. It's exhausting, and that's why I hate talking about the subject of hijab and niqab, because as far as I'm concerned now, we live in a day and a time where we are able to access the knowledge. 300 years ago in my country, I wouldn't be able to access this sort of knowledge, alhamdulillah, you know. So it's really frustrating when people bring this subject to you and you're like, you know, the evidence is there. We're not just saying it because it's a great thing to say. There is evidence, you know, and that evidence is clear and accessible. Don't just say stuff because you've been taught to say stuff. Research, read, look into it. And when you get that evidence, be humble in taking it. For me personally, I don't believe that niqab is mandatory. Since looking at the evidence, etc., I believe that it's advised, and in some situations would be more advised, you know, depending on the situation. Like going to Saudi, for example, everywhere wears niqab. So I think it would make more sense in that situation for you to cover your face, because otherwise you would stand out. At the end of the day, this is to prevent us from being harassed. We don't want just anybody looking at us. This is a part of the honor of hijab. And that's why it's really mind-baffling sometimes when you get really angry. And a lot of the time, Muslim men coming to you saying, you don't need to wear this, this is culture. And you're like, first of all, don't talk to me. I don't need to justify what I'm doing to you. Go, you have the resources, you have access to the resources, go and research yourself. You know, This is my business, not yours.
SubhanAllah. I actually remember one of the videos that you had made, and brother made a comment on your video, and he was basically saying, oh sister, stop dressing like this, we're not animals that you need to cover up yourself like that. He made the comment like that. So he's basically saying that, oh, us men, we know how to control ourselves, you don't have to go to this extreme to cover. Do you see what I mean? So, and so when we link the when we link the hijab itself and niqab to you know, trying to prevent ourselves from being harassed by men, definitely this is a benefit. We need to be careful that we're not just attaching it to that, because that's where the West get this idea that men are forcing us to do it, because and that Muslim men are these, you know, astaghfirullah, but like, I don't know, men that don't know how to control themselves, basically. So if they see a woman, they're going to lose their minds. This is the perception that people are getting.
If there was any group of men in the world that women should be safe with, it should be Muslim men. Why? Because they know and fear Allah, because they know their religion, and they have been told to lower their gaze.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not saying that
or not.
Yeah, although we'll never be perfect, it should be the example. So, you know, although we all have our tests and we all have our struggles, and sometimes we'll make mistakes, etc., we still should, for the most part, should be the leading example. And unfortunately, I don't think that we always meet that. Should we continue?
Definitely, inshallah.
So the Sheikh said, "Ath-thiyabul jamila," beautiful clothing. He didn't say she's not properly covered. She's properly covered, but with adorned, decorative clothing. No bueno, señorita. والحلي أيه والحلي والحلي والحلي. وشو الحلي? الحلي is jewelry. Sisters be wearing niqab, but she's wearing like 3 rings and bracelets and madri ish. It's like, dude, you tripping or what? You can't be wearing no rings and jewelry and henna showing, and you know, your nails are done and whatever. Like, some sisters really are confused. Like, you cover in your face, which I believe is not obligatory according to the sound, you know, the strong opinion and the strong evidences in favor of the face not being obligatory to be covered. But the irony of all ironies, when you cover your face and then you show everything else. Like, you literally have sisters wearing niqab. It's a cultural thing. They wear niqab and her abaya is open. And under the abaya is tight jeans or tights like yoga pants and, you know, a shirt. And so she's walking, showing her entire body, but her face is covered. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Taqwa upstairs, yani fasad downstairs. Well, the taqwa started upstairs, didn't make it all the way down. The elevator got stuck. You know, the elevator that carries the taqwa from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet got stuck on the first floor. What is that? The 10th floor? So all the other 9 floors are corrupt? But what is this confusion? وَجَمِيعَ الْبَدَنْ كُلَّهُ مِنَ الزِّينَةِ. The entire body is actually an adornment. So this is how valuable women are. This is how precious and how desirable women are. The entire body of the woman is zina, is an adornment, including her feet. That's why it's another astonishing reality when a sister will cover herself and wear sandals. And then you see her feet, her ankles and her heels and her toes. No, you cannot. Feet is part of the awrah. You have to cover your feet.
Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. I think the first thing that I want to say, now obviously we don't expose ourselves at our sins, but the only reason I'm saying this is because I have made content online, and I have always worn rings. But in my defense, I never realized that rings were not permissible. I remember I got a lot of critique about wearing one ring in particular on my index finger, the shahada finger, as they put it. And they said, you know, you're not allowed to put your ring, a ring in this shahada finger. So when I did research on that, I found that I was allowed to put rings on any finger.
No.
Doing that in front of non-mahrams, I didn't realise that at the time. It was my ignorance. And so I continued to wear. The reason why I'm saying this is to obviously clarify, but also that I think a lot of this stuff is ignorance and a lack of knowledge. That I know for my part, that's what that was. And I think the rings, I think the feet are a part of that. That's just my experience in discussions with sisters. I remember being in some, kind of, I don't want to say debates because, I'm a nice person, okay? I'm not here to win anything, I'm just here to be. But just speaking about feet and then being like, no, feet is not a part of the awrah. And I'm like, it is though.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
And there is, I don't know if maybe, I don't know if that's your experience.
I wanted to comment on this as well because alhamdulillah, Allah Mubarak, and may Allah bless the brother, because I think me watching this video, this is the part that stuck out for me. Because like I had been like obviously putting out content, and most of my content is audio only anyways, but then I have made some videos, especially recently since moving here to moving to West Africa. And I always used to wear gloves in the UK. I still kind of, I don't like to say sit on the fence with regards to the niqab being obligatory or just recommended, but I prefer the opinion that it's obligatory because in my mind it makes more sense. But for me, that's not what's important. I do believe that it is the more correct hijab, so that's why I personally wearing. And I don't. The reason why I haven't made a complete decision is because I haven't looked at the other side, what that says that it's only recommended. So for me, from the education that I've had with regards to hijab, I would lean more towards the side that it is obligatory because these are the points that I've learned. And it's funny that in this particular video that the brother has made, even though he says that he believes the niqab is not mandatory, a lot of the points he makes point to the niqab being mandatory, because if you say the whole of the woman is awrah, then that includes the face. And the face is the point of attraction. And just coming back to what he mentioned at the beginning of this segment that we just continued, he was talking about women covering, and obviously you could be wearing full hijab without covering your face, but if you're a beautiful woman and is extremely attractive, a man, he might take a second look at you. So have you failed in your hijab then? Because but even though you're covered in your boring hijab, head to foot black, okay, well, let's say that is the standard boring, okay, so if we're saying that a woman is covered from head to foot in black and she's got her face out, and if she's what is is seen in society as somebody which is exceptionally beautiful, most people are going to look at her more than once, men or women. Okay, so do we put the blame on the sister then, or are we saying now that women should cover their face if they are perceived by their communities to have more beauty than others? Do you know what I mean? So it comes like
I think it is actually the advice.
People have said that to me as well. That's their reasoning for not believing that the niqab is mandatory, or not believing that they need to, or that they should wear the niqab because they don't consider themselves beautiful.
I think that's the thing though, what is beautiful and who determines what is beautiful. At the end of the day, we know that one man's trash is another man's treasure, that's a really terrible example, but
well, yeah, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, isn't it? So alhamdulillah.
Yeah, no, so it is I mean, we do have hijab, we do have to cover a large proportion of our bodies. It is a reflection of how sensitive this issue is. We should be trying to do our best in this area, and I don't feel that we always are. It's about constantly trying to learn and grow in all areas, not just hijab. I think you made a lot of great points there, and I think what I was trying to say a minute ago was it does show how sensitive this issue and how important this issue is, despite how uncomfortable
Yes, because
this
you know,
conversation makes
I
us.
just wanted to continue like what I was saying actually, because I realized I didn't really actually get to the point. I kind of went off on a little tangent, but I was saying that like I have made content and my hands have been out and I've been wearing gloves. Sorry, I've been wearing rings. Okay, so my hands have been out and I've been wearing rings in content that I've made, like some of my video content. And subhanAllah, when I was living in the UK, I always used to wear gloves. Like that was and to be honest with you, like just sharing my own personal experience, gloves were the last thing that I put on. And I found it so difficult to wear gloves because I'm a very hands-on person. I do a lot of work with my hands. I'm an artist and stuff like that, you know. So for me, wearing gloves was extremely difficult. Like when I put the niqab on, I'd wanted to wear the niqab for years and I'd never thought about gloves. It hadn't come to my mind, but the niqab, I wanted to wear it for years. And when I put it on, it was easy, alhamdulillah. And I wore it, I've been wearing it ever since that time. I've never taken it off, alhamdulillah. But the gloves was so difficult. I found it difficult to wear gloves. So what I would do to help myself actually wear gloves was to paint my nails. The time when we can paint our nails, I would paint my nails. And then that would, for me, would be the way to help me to force myself to put gloves on, because I don't want people to see that I've got nail polish, because I don't think that's acceptable. You know, I don't think that's appropriate. And it's beautiful that the brother has mentioned this point, because you know, it was a reminder to me, like, look, you know, you was covering your hands. The way you helped yourself to cover your hands is by putting on something on your hand which you don't see to be as acceptable to show to people. That's how you helped yourself wear the glove.
I think what's a really good point about what you've just said there is that it doesn't have to be easy for us to then say that we should do it.
Exactly.
You know, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't like gloves. I have tried to wear them more because, like you said, you know, sometimes I want to put my rings on. Like, my rings are not expensive or flashy. They are sentimental. They are attached to my kids, my spouse, and my country. So sometimes I want to wear them. But like you now, I'm thinking, okay, if I want to wear them, what can I do to make sure that I'm still good in this area? And I think it's important for all sisters to think about and ponder on and to reflect on. Not everything we do as Muslims when we're trying to better ourselves is going to come easy. Is it going to be automatically comfortable? It's not always going to come natural. I mean, it's hard. We are able to do.
Of course.
Like that, Allah wouldn't be unjust in this area. It's our conditioning, it's our insecurities, it is maybe our environments that puts that the pressure on us otherwise. But it's down to us to channel that. That is a part of our test. We should seek refuge in Allah, we should make dua, we should find comfort in the religion. Our best Muslim selves should always be the goal. It's not just in the areas of hijab, but hijab is obviously one of them. Our goal should always be striving towards that, even if we're not there yet. And I think it's these reminders, and I think that's what part of the reason why we wanted to do this reaction today, to try and encourage and empower them, inshallah.
Position. There are two positions. Either wearing a niqab and covering your hands, you take that as obligatory. That means you covered entirely from top to bottom. The only thing that shows is your eyes. Your eyes within a niqab. And some of the scholars say it's just as much as the eye is, not even this much. And some of them say only one eye, just so you can see with the other eye. No issue. Let's say two eyes. Two eyes. Not your entire forehead and half of your face and 3/4 of your nose. That's one opinion. The other opinion, you can show your entire face, which is from the hairline, from the hairline, your jabeen, your forehead, down here. That neck has to be covered. The neck has to be covered, and your hands can show. And your hands can show without all the all that stuff. No jewelry, no henna, no benna. That's what you got. Anything other than that, you're really not wearing hijab, sister. You're gonna say, but we live in America, we live in London, and we will look like we're Madri Ish. Jannah is not cheap. And, you know, stay at home. Really, you're uncomfortable? Stay at home. Nothing better for you than your own home. There's a reason why Allah said, وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنْ, and remain in your homes. Because there's nothing, your salah at home is better than your salah in the jama'ah, in the masjid. Now we're not telling you not to leave, but we're just saying, if you want to go out, then you better adhere. That's a clear Quranic ayah that people dismiss. And watch what's coming next is going to be even more evident to what I'm saying.
Okay, so I think it's important for me to point out that this is a small cut to a podcast. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he was showing things in that. I didn't watch the full podcast. I only saw this clip. He's clearly speaking in context. Okay,
Yes.
he's not just randomly coming out the blue and telling sisters they better do this and they better do that. And I think it's also again important to point out that this is his dawah style and that works for him.
Definitely.
So like we're not here to criticize that. The only thing I have to say about this point is, obviously there's truth in what he's saying here. We can't make ourselves palatable to our environments because sometimes that requires us compromising our Islam, and we don't do that as Muslims. The only thing that kind of concerns me here is just I worry about how some sisters who are still learning, I always have this revert mind on. I always try to take into consideration what would a newer revert feel about this, and it might be a bit overwhelming for them. So the only thing that I would kind of want to say here is, instead of us just saying don't leave the house, because this is not always a choice, and I know he did clarify that he wasn't saying that, but at the same time, this is what the sisters are going to hear, and this is what I heard the first time I watched the video, so it's like, okay, what can we do in a practical way that helps sisters feel comfortable in their hijab and niqab and abaya when going outside? What can we do to help the sister who is struggling with adopting this, especially in Western countries, especially in cultures where adhering to the guidance is not normal? Like, what can we do for them?
Well, that's a good question, but which I really can't answer. I personally, as a revert myself, I really just think it's something which comes down to the individual. And when we look at the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the first Muslims, they were grounded in their deen. This is what made everything else easier. When you believe in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, you accept that there's a hellfire, you accept that there's paradise, and you're hoping for paradise, and you're fearing the punishment of the fire. This helps you make any decision that you need to make in your life, because you need to have this literally right here. Anytime you open your eyes, that needs to be the forefront of your mind, and is down to the individual. We can try to make things as easy for other people as possible, but if the person's not ready, they just ain't ready and they won't do it. So yes, it can be difficult depending on somebody's circumstances. So for me, that tells me that I shouldn't be judgmental of others. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And just like you mentioned before, the religion, Allah's given us things which are obligatory for a reason. And, if we couldn't do it, he wouldn't tell us to do it. So we know that we have to do certain things, and everything that we are commanded to do, we might not be happy with it, but this is what Islam is. It's submission. We're submitting to Allah's will, not our own desires. So it's good that the brother mentioned this point. And I just wanted to add something onto what he said about sisters shouldn't leave the house if they don't have the correct hijab, or if they're not prepared to wear it. And yes, okay, there is obviously the element of impracticality, because as you mentioned, some sisters have to work. Some sisters, their husbands even make them work, okay, to help them financially. So there is an impracticality there. So it's not just, something which is like, oh, default, you can just do it. But this is the Sunnah. So he said that, and some of us might not like hearing it, but actually what he said is the Sunnah. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the women who didn't have jilbab, they did not leave the house. They stayed at home. And that's why we have that hadith when the Prophet ﷺ, he told the women that everybody should come out for the Eid prayer. And if any sister does not have a jilbab, that her sister should give her one. So those
Yeah.
of us, for me, how to come back to your question, how can we help those sisters who are struggling? Some sisters don't have jilbab, some sisters don't have abaya, some of them
Yeah.
can't afford it. I know
Yeah.
when I became Muslim, I really wanted to wear those clothes.
Yeah.
I
I
really
didn't
wanted
have
to wear them, and
access
I
to
did
them
not have
either.
money. I was financially, I did not have the money to go and buy those things. So I had to make and do with the little that I had. It should help
Yeah, no,
other sisters, those of us who have more than one abaya, more than one jilbab, give some away sometimes. If we know that we have more than we need, then we need to try to reach out to other sisters who may be in that situation, giving them a gift of an abaya or a jilbab, even if it's a used one that you've had that's in good condition, because don't give somebody something that you know you wouldn't wear. Or if you want to gift somebody someone like a brand new one, then you will get the benefits, you will get the blessings for them actually wearing that, because you've helped them in it. Because that's something I didn't get as a new Muslim, and it took me a long time to be able to wear jilbab and abaya, and that was part of the reason, because I didn't have that help. Still, the sister will have to make the decision to wear it, but if she wants to wear it, you've made it easier for her to actually do that.
Alhamdulillah. I think that's great advice. I think poverty and access is very much a thing in a lot of places. I'm in Glasgow, that's the biggest city in Scotland. I only know of one abaya shop. Even now. Back in the day, there was nothing like that. And I wanted so badly. I remember seeing someone in a black abaya, and I just remember thinking, oh, that, you know, kind of fulfills everything that I'm trying to achieve with the clothes that my non-Muslim clothes that I still had. You know, I was putting skirts over trousers and tops over tops and jackets over tops, because I was newly Muslim. I had no access, I had no support, no help, you know. But even now, 17 years on, I only know one abaya shop. And I know that they wouldn't be able to accommodate every sister, because they're not an abaya shop. They're just a shop that has a few abayas, you know, because there's a lot, but don't get me wrong, there's access to cultural clothing, there's, you know, a more dominant Muslim community. So, but some people don't want to wear that. Some people just want, you know, plain abaya. And it's really difficult. So I do think definitely in that area, that's great practical advice. But also just, I think knowledge is key here. Sisters, all of us Muslims in general need to start prioritizing Allah, need to start prioritizing our deen. Like you said, submit humbly, with eagerness. You know, we are Muslims. We have been given the guidance. We have been honored by the knowledge. You know, we have been honored by mercy and blessings. So we need to take that with humility, and we need to try and adhere to it in the best way we can with what we can. And if we haven't got something, we need to find a way to get it, you know, within the boundaries and context of Islam, of course.
Of course.
When it comes to this brother's video or our video after this, is your choices, your free will, and your business. We're here to support and advise each other. We're here to encourage each other. You know, this is an ummah. We're brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah. We want the best for you. We want the best for ourselves. We are flawed human beings as well. We are striving just as much as the next person. I just wanted to react to the video because I thought there was some goodness in it, but I thought maybe we could expand on it and for it to be beneficial, inshallah.
Inshallah, alhamdulillah. And I think one of the points that you made, which I just want to reiterate again, is that this is just a clip from one of the brothers' podcasts, which I believe he's doing tafsir of Surah An-Nur, if I'm not correct, but he's doing a tafsir at the moment, as far as I remember. I haven't been listening to it actually, but I see the notification. So I think it is part of an actual tafsir. So don't, if you watch the video, or if you feel that, you know, his comments were in any way maybe harsh or something like that, try to take the time to actually listen to his whole video that he's put, like his whole tafsir that he's doing, because inshallah you will benefit.
Inshallah.
This internet connection is so distracting. Alhamdulillah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakallah khair for having me.
My pleasure, sis, as always. Wa alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Any mistakes made in this video is a reflection of me and my limitations as a human being, and any good in this video is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God the Almighty.